Hello, Georgetta Gancars here, and I want to do a video today to talk a little bit about abstract expressionist painting with the palette knife and also with brushes. So you can do this if you're using watercolors. You're just not going to add water to your medium. You can also do this if you're using oils. You just wouldn't add your another solvent like your terpenoid or your linseed oil or turpentine. And if you're using acrylics, you wouldn't add any water. Of course, you would need to clean your brushes with your solvent in between and wipe off your palette knife with a rag, but you want to have the paint very, very thick. And I want to talk to you a little bit about texture. So I'll show you some of the things that I did already. This is kind of done with the palette knife, and you can see I'm just using primary and secondary colors. It's kind of an abstract picture of a bunch of flowers and a vase here, and the background, and this cloth, and here are some sunflowers, and we have one that is a little bit more realistic, and you can see the texture, and here is one that is kind of to the side. It's a little bit more abstract. So the thing is, first of all, we have to focus on the types of strokes that you are going to use. So I'm going to go over this, but I want to show you some strokes that I did and explain them to you. This is where we do, it's called press and release. So we kind of take the palette knife, we put the color on, and we press and lift it up. This is blending two colors together and dragging them down. These are putting on a color, then waiting for it to semi-dry and putting other colors on top. And on the other side, we have a bunch of colors where I put a darker color and scraped off the color with the side of the knife, and then put a lighter color on top, and I just layered many colors on top. Here is another example, and these are starting off as like some kind of abstract flowers, and you can see the texture here with the green and the purple. So let me show you how to get started first, and I'm setting up here, and I want to show you these strokes, and these are kind of where you're putting the color on the knife, pulling it down, stopping, putting the color on the knife, and you can really see the texture that it makes. You can even run your hand over it. It's very rough, and this was kind of like a little fast demo just to show you how to put the color down. So the first thing we have to do is we have to think about the type of strokes that we're making. So you have to kind of think, okay, do you want them to be really thick? Do you want them to be smooth? Do you want them to kind of blend together? Do you want to have a light area and then a dark area? What do you want to, what kind of palette knife or brush painting do you want to make, and the colors? So when I look at the colors, what I do is I have my color wheel here, and usually, again, I spoke about how to do backgrounds, but an easy way to do a background, say for an example, if you had purple flowers, you can incorporate green, you'd have your green stems, and you could have a yellow background, and you could tone that down with white, right? The same thing as if you had orange flowers, you might have a blue background, and you can tone that down with white. And you'll see that if you go along all the wheel here, these are just the colors in white, and these are the colors in gray in the middle, and these are the colors in black, right? So you can kind of, if you wanted to do it more monochromatic here, you could have this yellow, orange, and then you add white to it, then you add gray, then you add black. So the color wheel is a helpful tent and a helpful tool in deciding what your colors are going to be. So I just want you to get your color wheel out, place your colors in order that you would want to use them, and then you're going to set up your palette, and I'm going to do first a couple of examples. And before you start painting, I want you to do these examples with the palette knife and the brush. So the part 2 of the video is going to be that in a couple of minutes. But I want to make sure you have all of your palette knives out. Now, students usually say, what kind of palette knife do I need? I would say a variety of palette knives of different sizes are great for this exercise. I even have a half blade. You see how it has a half blade? It makes a very sharp edge. If you don't have that, at least have one standard knife that you can use. And for brushes, let's start with a very small brush, and let's make sure that it has a square edge. Do you see how this has a square edge? It has this kind of a square edge. And a rougher brush, a natural hair brush is better, but you can still use a synthetic brush. You just pick up a little bit more paint. So it depends what you want. So, you know, 2 brushes would be better, again, and set up your palette knives and set up your colors. And I'm going to come back and we're going to start learning about how we can use the texture in part 2 of this series of the video, and part 3 we will start the painting. Okay, so set up, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes for part 2.